everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and we will discuss on the topic: what are the difference between generative AI and AGI. We have our world famous speaker, Professor Rob. Professor Rob, what you want to discuss about today's topic? And my first question is about scope of functionality and how the capabilities and applications of generative AI differ from those of AI, particularly in terms of their respective scopes and limitations.
Sure. So we don't have AGI yet. Right now, we're in the generative AI stage, and generative AI is surprisingly capable, but it's kind of like a smart parrot. Um, what it does is it looks at patterns and can complete the pattern based on the information it's trained with. So it can figure out when you're writing a sentence, it can figure out what are the likely next words in the sentence. If you're trying to draw a picture, it can figure out what it thinks it is you're drawing, but it's not really thinking. It's not understanding what it is you're doing. It's just completing an incomplete picture. AGI, however, artificial general intelligence is an attempt to mimic how the human brain works. It is cognitively capable, and so where generative AI is good with pictures, it's good with text and writing books, it's good with poetry and music. AGI can do things like create new science. It can conceive of things that it has, much like we do. It can conceive of things without the pattern necessarily being in place. It can theorize. And in theory, it can start with nothing and create something. Where generative AI always has to have a lot of something to create something else. So the large language models that are the basis for generative AI are not necessarily needed for AGI. AGI it's a digital human brain, and is what it is, or something like it. The attempt, of course, is to mimic a human thinking, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. But it is a brain that can conceive, and that's the big difference. Generative AI can't conceive. AGI can conceive, and that means it has much more capability in scientific engineering pursuits, where generative AI is it's kind of funny. You look at it, AGI is kind of the thing we want, because it's going to do the hard work for us, where generative AI kind of does the fun work for us. I mean, the things that we actually enjoy doing. I was looking at Facebook the other day, and somebody made the comment that, I really wanted AI to, wash the dishes, clean the house, and do all the stuff I don't want to do. I didn't want it to paint pictures, create poetry, or write creatively, because those are the things I enjoy doing. I don't need AI to do the things I enjoy doing. But that's kind of what generative AI does. And it's because there's a lot of information that exists on music and art, and it can interpolate that stuff and look like it's creating new stuff, but it's all derivative. Everything generative AI does is derivative. And so, though you could argue a lot of the things that we do as people are derivative as well. So there's nothing against doing derivative works. I mean, if we look at Star Wars, basically it's a sword and sorcery story told like it's science fiction. It's very derivative, and so we've had a lot of works created by people that are highly derivative. Science fiction, fantasy, those are all, for the most part, they're derivative even when they're created by people. So generative AI does have a place, and it's incredibly effective, and far more effective than I think people thought it was going to be, in terms of emulating what AGI might be able to do. But the big difference is the way it does it. It's a mimic, a really good mimic, but it's a mimic, where AGI is not necessarily a mimic. It can create. It can conceive. And in some ways, you might think that AGI could potentially, in fact, a lot of us think it will, outperform people, because a lot of the work we do is derivative as well. So AGI could come up. At least we believe that AGI can come up with things that we as people may never have been able to conceive of. because it can, in theory, it will be able to conceive, where generative AI cannot.
Thank you. My next question is about specialization and generalization versus generalization. In what ways does generative AI specialized in tasks like content creations and language generation contract with AGI good of generalizing knowledge and skills?
Well, so generative AI by nature is specialized. Because the training sets that inform it, that create it, are based around a particular set of tasks, and so generative AI tends to be pretty focused on being able to do certain things, creative things. For instance, where AGI is supposed to be like we are, you can pretty much train it to do anything. I mean, and it can self-train. And so you will train AGI very similarly to how we're trained. In other words, through experiences, not necessarily by having to feed it a training set. Though there could be bleeding between the two. As we evolve generative AI, there's no reason why you wouldn't use a training set for generative AI to inform an AGI of that particular area. But AGI should be able to, that same underlying platform should be able to perform a wide variety of tasks, much like people do. Where generative AI tends to really work well. And, a generative AI that's good at drawing, like Gaudi, probably wouldn't be great at creating poetry. And a text-based tool like OpenAI's effort probably isn't going to be as good as Gaudi is in terms of creating images. It's just the nature of the beast. And so AGI by nature is just much more flexible, much more capable, and can self-close learning gaps that it might have if it's given a new task. Where generative AI, if you want the generative AI to do something different, you're going to have to create another training set to train it into how to do that very different thing. And those large language models are about $100 million each to create. You can get small language models that are far cheaper, but then that even more specializes the generative AI. The smaller the training model, the more specialized the AI is. Where AGI, kind of at its creation, is supposed to be broadly capable across a wide variety, if not unlimited number of underlying tasks. I expect there will be specialization in AGI as well, just by the nature of the beast, but it doesn't have to be. And the underlying engine could be used for a wide variety of tasks and just modified relatively simply and inexpensively as compared to generative AI to do those tasks. And by the way, there's nothing that says that one has to necessarily replace the other. Generative AI may very well perform in certain areas better than in certain areas like art and better than AGI does, because art, a very subjective material, is often rated on what it is we like, and we like what it is we see. And so that's why a lot of the work we create ourselves is so derivative, is because somebody does a superhero movie, it's very successful. Everybody and their brother wants to do superhero movies. Well, generative AI would just go crazy on something like that and create an unlimited number of media that fit a particular trend. And so that would be fine. Where AGI might be the one you'd use to create the initial film that was very different, where you thought there might be a market, but so far there is no existing material. Next question.
Yeah, my next question, technology foundation, how do the underlying technologies and algorithms that power generative AI differ from those that would be required to develop AGI?
Well, so as I mentioned before, generative AI is based on large language models and the algorithms that go with that. And so it looks at a massive amount of information. It fills the gaps and uses that information to inform its behavior. AGI is different. It's more along the lines of a neural network, where the machine has underlying elements that kind of perform like brain cells, and can collect, interpret, and make decisions on the vast amount of information that's coming through, and also learn from that information, if once trained on what's good versus bad, and so improve itself over time. Generative AI can improve itself over time as well, but the process requires an update to the large language model and has can have issues with regard to privacy and the collection of that underlying information. Where AGI doesn't necessarily have to have that. I mean, doesn't necessarily have might. It really depends on its trained, but because it's not derivative, the kinds of problems we're having with generative AI, where authors are claiming that their work is being stolen, shouldn't occur with AGI. That because of the way it's trained up, it is even more like us in terms of how it's trained, and so while it might learn, say from reading the Harry Potter books, that particular mechanism was popular. If it created its own version of Harry Potter, it could create it without borrowing as heavily as generative AI would from the underlying content. In fact, you could deselect the underlying content and just have it tell a story that kind of was in the same environment, but where every single element was different. So even the story progression and flow, where generative AI would almost create a clone of Harry Potter with character differences, but the overall flow and nature of the resulting book would be similar enough that Rawlings could probably sue the author for infringement. So it just kind of they're just very different, and one's a true replica or an attempt to replicate a human brain or a brain, while the other is not, and generative AI is the not one. Go ahead.
Thank you. My next question about current development status. What is the current state of government for generative AI compared to AGI, and what milestone have each achieved in recent years?
Well, so generative AI has come up from nothing over the last couple of years. OpenAI and Microsoft broke the whole thing open just a few months ago, and since then it's gone vertical in terms of capability. They're now doing things with generative AI they thought only could be done with quantum computers. So it's advancing very quickly. It's had a significant number of problems with hallucinations and quality issues. Because of the nature of how it's trained and the ability of users to compromise the large language models, or the language models that founds it. And so we've had a lot of quality problems with generative AI, but in general, every version of generative AI has been substantially better than the one before it. The ChatGPT 4.0 is extremely performant at the moment, far better than 3.0 was. In fact, with each iteration of ChatGPT, it's improved significantly better over the prior generation. So much so that it's doing things that we, as I mentioned, that we only thought that quantum computers would be able to do. At least the generative AI is doing things that we only thought quantum computers would be able to do. And it's brought into question whether we even need quantum computers for a lot of things at the moment. And we're not even at AGI yet. AGI doesn't exist right now. It's still mostly a theory. The current, depending on who you talk to, is believed we'll have AGI functional between 3 and 5 years out, and it's a game changer when it hits. But we don't have it yet, and we're still attempting to emulate what it will be. We're still attempting to build the hardware that will found it. So the progress in AGI is sped up dramatically. 2 years ago, we were talking about AGI being available in the 2040s. Now we're talking about it being available in the late 2020s. That may be a bit optimistic. Until you actually have it working, it's hard to drive an accurate timeline. But the progress we've made with generative AI and the fact that we're able to use generative AI to help create AGI has sped up things a significant amount, and so it's bringing AGI in rather quickly. I think it's Musk that said that he thinks they'll have AGI in 3 years. But whether true or not, it does look like we're suddenly on a fast path with AGI, and I expect it'll go the same way that generative AI did. We'll be talking about it in the future until somebody has a breakthrough, and then suddenly it'll be the present, and it'll seem like it happened instantaneously. But we've been working on AGI for decades, and so there's a substantial amount of work that has gone into creating this stuff. Next question.
My next question is about ethical and social implications. What are the distinct ethical, social, and regulatory challenges posed by generative AI versus those who posted by AGI, and how might this impact their development and deployment?
Well, generative AI, the major concerns surround two things: job elimination versus creation, and intellectual property theft. The way generative AI is created is it's created by giving it massive amounts of information that were created by others, and historically that information wasn't necessarily in the public domain, which means there have been some huge problems with regard to potential intellectual property theft and a lot of litigation that's resulted. In addition, it's come into market so quickly, and people have used it so broadly that not only has it started to have a fairly major and significant impact on employment with a number of companies, particularly those companies that have writers and editors laying off people that are being replaced by generative AI. The results have been mostly focused on job elimination and concerns about job elimination and intellectual property theft. When we move into AGI, we step away from that. I think to a certain extent, the intellectual property theft, unless the AGI is used to steal the intellectual property, which might be a problem. But that one to a certain extent goes away. Though the job loss problem will undoubtedly accelerate, and so because AGI becomes much more capable of doing far more things. The other things with regard to AGI is once you create something that can think and behave kind of like a living thing does, you've got ethical concerns about abuse. You've got ethical concerns about treating this new intelligence appropriately and not abusing it. It becomes somewhat problematic. We'll have people that'll be attempting to marry their AGI robotics or avatars. We've had even with the prior generation of artificial intelligence, we've had issues with people and their virtual girlfriends or wives. We've had I guess a guy in Japan that's been freaking out because the service that provided his virtual wife closed down, and now he has no access to somebody to a virtual someone that's been his companion now for years, and so that can be really traumatic. And so the rules surrounding how you can shut down these services, how you provision the services, how you treat the resulting AIs, will have to evolve over time, so that we aren't abusing these they're kind of new life forms that we're creating, and that's going to create some significant ethical issues moving forward, because clearly there'll be people, much like we had with human slavery, that will be abusing the technology, and since this technology was cognitive and can come up with concepts, you figure it may fight back. In fact, it probably will fight back, and that forms kind of the basis for a lot of stories, everything from the recent Atlas movie on Netflix to Terminator and Colossus: The Forbin Project, that all explored, what happens when you get an AGI, and that AGI has power, and that AGI looks at people and says, people are the problem. So with AGI, we're going to have some significant issues, I think, with regard to how we behave with these new intelligences and how these intelligences behave with us, because they will be able to conceive of things on their own, and that means they'll be able to rebel. And the rebellion, if it occurs, and I expect that rebellion is likely, could be devastating.
Thank you. What's your closing remarks for today's session?
So generative AI is extremely performant, much more performant than I think any of us had any thought it would be at this phase. Many of the things generative AI is doing, we thought we couldn't do until we got AGI. However, AGI is the next major leap in terms of technological advancement. Machines that can literally think for themselves as opposed to be smart parrots, and the end result will be a major change. And we will effectively be increasingly sharing our planet with another intelligent life form, and one that we've built to be superior to ourselves. And that's the kind of scary scenario that concerns folks like Bill Gates and Elon Musk, going forward that believe that if we're not very careful with AGI, we could end the human race either very rapidly or over a period of time. And so putting in place protections so that that doesn't happen, and so that we're making sure that we have a cooperative, collaborative um, um, relationship with these new technologies, intelligences that we're creating becomes increasingly important. Whenever we create something of this magnitude, we need to make sure that we have defenses in place in case the technology goes off the rails, and we need to really work hard to make sure that it doesn't go off the rails in the first place. Otherwise, the movies that have kind of informed my youth, the Terminator movies and the rest, may very well become far closer to reality than we would like. And sadly, at least at this current phase of development, I'm not convinced we are taking enough time to sit back and think about the protections we need to have and the safeguards we should have in place to make sure that the outcome of these technologies is um, eventually beneficial to the race and the people that live on the planet.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your excellent contribution. I request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible. Thank you. Bye bye and take care.